I'm Sarina Fazan, taking a risk, making a difference, and changing the course of your life. Remarkable stories from people defying the odds. You're listening to On the Record. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sarina Fazan. All right, how important is it? Who do you know? How important is that? Well, if you ask networker Aakash Patel, he will say it boils down to that, right?
Of course.
Who you know. Aakash Patel, thank you so much for being here. Aakash is the CEO and founder of Elevate and also a very dear friend of mine. Thank you for joining us on the Record.
Thank you so much, Sarina. It's an honor to be here. This is an amazing podcast studio. Thank you so much.
Isn't it such a great studio? We're in a historic building for those who, we've talked about this a bit, Aakash, but this building is actually the oldest cigar building in Tampa, Florida. Gail Guayardo, who's a very familiar face in Tampa, her grandmother used to work in this building.
That's a lot of history right there.
I know,
I'm sure there's some stories.
So tell us about you, though. So you are the founder of your company, Elevate. So tell us all about it.
So, I graduated. So I went to high school here in Tampa. I went to Florida State for college. So go Noles if any fans out there. And I graduated Florida State with a degree in political science and English literature. Came back to Tampa because this is home. This is where all my friends are. We were all getting involved in the community. And a lot of them are starting businesses. And so I said, well, I can help you navigate some of your business development opportunities. And so I went to work for some friends. And they went really well. And then finally I realized that, I like just doing that portion of it is helping kind of navigate the business development and working in different industries. It's a good challenge. And so I started this business in 2012 with the help of my friends. And really, we work with companies generally that relocate and predominantly that are entrepreneurs at start that don't have a roadmap to, like I did. Like they don't know everyone in town, so they have to know people and they have to know where they spend their time. And so I liken it like when you move to a new city and you don't know anyone, you have to figure out who's the right person to hang out with and who's the right bank to go with. And so we kind of help navigate those efforts for young entrepreneurs and relocated companies.
And I have to say, you have such an amazing history, and that's why one of my interns is sitting in on the podcast, Jordan Vidal. Hi, Jordan. And you have one of your interns here as well, because I wanted them to listen in, and for everybody, and especially young kids listening or watching, tell people the story about you and the plane and how just a simple plane ride home got you. I don't want to spoil it.
No, it's okay.
I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to even say the spoiler. You tell us that story.
Well, the long and short of it is I was going to Philadelphia where my mom was living when I was in college, and I was on a flight. And everyone's been on a flight, right? And you always sit next to someone, at least before COVID, that might not be talkative or they might interfere in your space. And I was just sitting next to someone and I struck up a conversation like eager young kids do with it in college.
And how old were you at this time? Would you say, were you a junior,
19,
senior?
Yeah,
19.
I was a sophomore, yeah.
Okay, you were a sophomore, all right.
And then I struck up a conversation and the person didn't really want to talk much. We're at baggage claim because, you got to get your bags when you land. And I had a business card and I just handed my business card, and long and short of it is...
Oh, wait, no, because this story is so great and he's like rushing through it. No, wait. All right, so this guy on the plane doesn't really talk to you because he's reading his book.
Correct, right?
Okay.
Remember, yeah.
So then so you're down at baggage claim.
Yep.
And here you are, and he's getting his bags.
Yep.
And although he was not really speaking to you... Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the guy didn't like you or anything, but you still took the initiative of now pick up the story.
Right, because you never know who's going to need you or you're going to need them. And I had a business card, and we did talk for a few minutes, and I learned that he was also a Florida State alum, so we had the commonality of FSU. And I handed him my business card, not expecting much. When you hand people a business card, you don't really know what they're going to do with it. And that's like the tip I tell young people to network is you got to try to give it out and connect with people and see what happens.
All right. So why did you because this is just where the story is getting really good, but why did you have a business card at 19? What was your business card?
No, it's so funny. I was in the student senate at Florida State University, and the university provided business cards.
Well, good for you.
And it was able to network, and I had my FSU email address. And now I tell students, I just spoke to some college students today from USF, St. Leo, and UT. And I said, it's okay if your college doesn't provide business cards. You can go to Office Depot or wherever you want to get it and buy them online.
Like $20. I mean, honestly, it's so worth it. All right. So you hand this person your business card.
And then he follows up and we strike a conversation.
Okay. All right.
We meet because I worked at college at the Tampa Bay Times office in Tallahassee. And he needed a copy of a publication from a past.
But you hand him your business card,
Yep.
and out of the blue, doesn't he reach out to you?
Yeah.
So see, he's skipping
6 months later.
Okay, 6 months later.
Yeah.
Okay, so come on.
That's why she's a journalist and I'm just a guest.
All right, so 6 months later, you get an email
Yep.
from this person.
Yep.
And
so he just said, hey, do you remember me? I was on this flight from Tallahassee to Philadelphia. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And basically, can I get a copy of the Times, whatever date he wanted? And I was like, come by my office and I'll give you an issue. And so when he came by the office, I asked him for his business card.
good for you.
And then a full year later, I'm graduating college. And, as people are graduating right now, what you got to do, you got to reach out to your network. And so I reached out to everybody, including this gentleman. I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. And he said, well, you can come to Tampa. We have an opening for you. Let me know when you can start.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that? So here is the lesson here. I mean, I don't even know how to put it into words. You've made me speechless, which is really actually very hard to do. But this is such a valuable lesson for people. You give a business card to a person on a plane. Years later, after you graduate from college, that simple business card led to your first big break.
And how I decided to live in this city, this great city. I mean, I have a history here, but wasn't sure. When you graduate, you go through all the things you want to do. You talk to your friends in other bigger cities and even some smaller cities. And I wasn't sure if Tampa was going to be home. So I think everything happens for a reason. And especially with the networking portion of it, you've got to not only just give out business cards, you've got to follow up and have a strategy. And so what I really taught myself, I think during that time, is have a strategy and a plan. And that's what we've implemented and we teach our customers today.
So I wanted to ask you, and I know the answer to this because I have been so interested in your story, so I've asked you these follow-up questions. But for people, this is such valuable advice, and it doesn't matter how old you are, if you're in whatever career you're in. You recommend whenever you get a business card or a contact, what should people do immediately?
I ask people to add them on LinkedIn. If they have a company Facebook page, like it. If they have a company Twitter page, follow it. And then also I open up a Microsoft Excel document. There's card apps right now, but I open up Microsoft Excel because I'm a visual person. So if I type someone's name, I'll remember it and where they work. And I write down their name, their title, their email address, where I met them, and the date. And I keep it in an Excel format. And I review that Excel format every 30 days. And the people that I've not connected with, obviously, that I want to connect with, I'll reach back out to them after 30 days. And that's where people say, wow, you know what? I can't believe you reached out. Normally, after 30 days, people give up on hanging out or meeting up or having a phone call. And I just feel that we got to be persistent. If you really want to get out there to meet somebody, they're going to make the time. And that is what I tell people is follow up.
So with your contacts, I can imagine through the years, because you have this amazing network, it's grown and grown and grown. So when you say every 30 days, and I know it's hard to put an hour on that, but does that take a significant amount of time or does it not?
Yeah, we take out 5 hours a week. So about an hour a day. I spend an hour a day in the morning just reviewing contacts, updating lists, and also reaching out to people. Because the thing is that people might not always need your services right away, but they do like to be staying in contact with. So when the pandemic hit, the first thing I did is just reach out. Hey, how are you doing? How's your family? How's your health? And reach out to, I think it was 20 people a week I would reach out to. And they were probably prospects at one point, but they weren't currently. And I just wanted to know what was going on because my theory on it is that worlds are going to collide again. And it's a small town, as we know. So the networking aspect of it is you don't want to burn a bridge. So you always just stay in touch with people and you just small touches. And then people take it to a different level. They can handwrite notes. They can send gifts. They can, through LinkedIn connections. But mine is very simple. Email, Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Excel.
So, Akash, let me ask you, with the emails that you were talking about, and about 20 a week, you said you were sending,
Yep.
Do you do and I don't want to use the word generic, but maybe one or two lines might be the same for everybody, and then you personalize the rest? Or what, and I won't even ask what you do, actually. That's not a fair question. What advice would you have for people? Because if they're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't have the time to send 20 emails a week. It just sounds so daunting to me. And I can tell you, I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh my gosh, just the thought of, like an added task makes me sometimes hyperventilate.
Well, you can split it up. I mean, I don't do 20 in a day. I split it up generally, like I said, about an hour a day.
20 a day, I'm sorry. Okay.
20 a week.
20 week.
20 weeks, about an hour a day. So you can do 4 or 5 in an hour. And I copy and paste. And I generally say, the event where we met, maybe something personal about them if I remember. And also just, the funniest thing is salutations are just new on email, right? They're not new, but people remember what you say. So yours truly, sincerely, I say, have a great day. And I put 3 exclamation points. And people look at that like, why is it there? Wait, okay, I'll remember this guy. And so think about it. So I guess my tip is, a salutation and a greeting, make them unique. So, whatever the conversation was with that person, you got to individualize it a little bit. But something that stand out uniformly is just have a great day with 3 exclamation points. And people are just like, no one else really puts 3 exclamation points. It's pretty interesting.
That is really interesting. No, that is really interesting. And I think it's interesting that you point out that choose what your personality is, because I do oftentimes send exclamation points or little smiley faces, not even the
emojis.
not even the emoji, but like the colon and then the parentheses,
right.
But it's reflective of your own personality, and you definitely want to be genuine and yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And so the other thing is people forget they have short-term memory, right? So do all your follow-ups within 24 hours of meeting the person.
24 hours within meeting somebody.
So if you know you're going to an event, schedule time the next day so you have that time.
So do you feel in this day and age, handwritten cards still go a long way?
Yeah, great question. I think handwritten cards do go a long way, but now you have got to be really careful with this pandemic. People with touching and things like that, they might not be so receptive to mail. But I think other things like just reminding, like if you're in the newspaper, like you're in the newspaper a lot. If you're in the newspaper, you cut out that clip or you take that link and you send it over. Hey, saw you, like this morning, there was a story about the zoning issue in Tampa on the Ritz-Carlton residences. A friend of mine was quoted in there, Debbie Lundberg, you know Debbie?
Yes, of course.
And
she was on the podcast, in fact.
Oh, cool. And I sent her a text and I said, hey, great quote. It was an awesome article. Yesterday, I was in the paper about something about going on in the community. Someone else sent that to me. So I think what we've come to realize is people like the instant gratification. And so, yes, greeting cards definitely do go along the way, but as you notice, it's a lot of time. So I try to, if I grab an article, I'll give a shout out on social media or I'll send a text right away.
Great advice. So I want to go back a little bit to when you started your company. You started your company right before the Bollywood Awards, right? Or did you have
2012, right?
2012.
Yeah.
All right. So
we've got a great picture of us, which I got to send you from the Bollywood Awards.
Really? Oh yeah, please send it. And we'll put it up in the studio.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
I'll
I
send
would
it to
love
you.
that.
Yeah.
I would love that. So at this point, you're starting your business, correct?
Right.
All right. So what advice, and now here you are years later, you have all these clients, and I know we're constantly growing, but what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who are just thinking, gosh, should I give up? Do I need to just plug away? I mean, how did you do it?
It's a great question because the first month I started my business, I had 3 customers. The second month I had 2, and the third month I had 1.
Wow.
And so I wasn't sure if this was going to survive.
You went backwards.
Right. And
you were thinking at the time.
And most businesses do. I mean, most businesses in the first year is the hardest part. I wasn't taking a salary, as you can imagine. You got to pay other bills. And you know what it's like. It's not fun. But for business people that are starting business now, a lot of entrepreneurs are doing it. Obviously think through your strategy and always tweak it. And so for me, what I didn't think about was the actual networking events, right? Because I knew how to network and I would coach people, but I didn't know that physically taking them to an event was a valuable ad. So I said, okay, well, the Republican convention's coming to Tampa in 2012. This was in May when I was going through this time. What if I brought customers that were my customers to some of these events and networked with them in person? And that's how we got to 8 clients in May of 2012, and now we're at 26.
That's great.
But you have to tweak that one little thing. It's like golf, one little inch. You just got to move it around, and you have to be patient, and you have to listen. I think what I would say to entrepreneurs is you've got to listen to people that have been in your shoes. I interviewed just through coffees and phone calls 50 CEOs that I wanted to be like in Tampa before I started my business, because I incorporated the company in November, but I didn't launch publicly till February of 2012. And so in that November to December, January time, I just interviewed people. I was like, what should I do? What should I think about? And it was very simple stuff, like have a bank account with some reserves in it. Make sure you're watching your expenditures on copying paper, like stuff like I was like, really, a paper clips, what? But it all adds up, and you've got to be really planned out when you start a business, especially in the beginning, because you don't know what's going to happen.
So how about those people that may not? And a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs don't start with any capital at all. It's just you and maybe a little bit in your savings account, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so what advice would you have on that? Say you don't have which most people don't. Again,
Right.
it's just you, right? What advice would you have? How do you get help? How do you network and get help on your own?
Yeah, so same thing. I bootstrap this as well, but I think what I luckily found out was there are a lot of small business loans, and the banks offer them to entrepreneurs. Also, there's a lot of incubators in town, like the Tampa Bay Wave is one of them, and there's a lot of mentors that they give out scholarships for people to start businesses. They're small organizations, like all sorts of different organizations give out scholarships. The Working Women Lunch we went to one time,
right, and I got a scholarship.
That's
I mean,
right.
oh my gosh, it brought me to tears. No, it brought me to tears. I got a scholarship for my business,
and you'll now eventually give that back, and you already do give it back to the community. So I would say, put a budget together, put a plan together, and we know you've got to save, obviously, but a lot of banks right now are offering the small business loans, and I think logistically, because of the world we're in, someone out there will help you if you put it out there.
So how would you recommend putting it out there? Do you call people that you know? I know you interviewed the 50 CEOs, as you said, so how would you recommend doing it?
Yeah, so for me, I had an awakening when I went to launch. People said, well, you need some mentors to guide you through it. So then I just called a bunch of mentors and said, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And they basically offered advice and guidance. And they said, we'll help you if we need, financial if you need. And I said, no, I don't want to get in that yet. But I think before you publicly launch, engage your network. So ask them about your business card processes, ask them about your logo color scheme, ask them about your what are you going to use, Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever your email platform. Send your website out before it goes live to friends. I think the more people you involve, that you keep your circle tight, but you keep it involved, they like and have a vested interest in you. And that's another way of just saying, hey, look, we can't help you right now, but eventually we will, and that's what's happened is that people say, 5-6 years ago, I didn't think, you were someone I wanted to help out, but now I do. And it's okay because everyone changes in life and times. And so for people starting out businesses now, understand that people have different things going on in their lives and they might be busy right now, but stay in touch and they might help them later on. And then if you find people that want to help you now, find a role for them to give you, maybe create an advisory board, create an event, or create a social media post and just thank them. That's something small and simple and free.
And you know what? And I think you bring up another good point about that because you are very extroverted and very engaging and very easy to talk to. But for the people some people are not extroverted, they're more introverted, it makes them very uncomfortable to call people, makes them uncomfortable to reach out.
Yeah.
But you're saying you can still do it, but do it in a post.
Yeah. And just say, and again, people on social media ask this a lot. They ask questions on what they, so again, if you're just thinking about remodeling a house, someone says, hey, I need a contractor to remodel my kitchen, and a question mark, and you get all these comments. Well, just like if you're starting a business, hey, I would like some guidance on helping a business. Is anyone in my friend circle wanting to advise me? And then just put a question mark and let people comment. Hey, yes, reach out to me. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if they're in your friend circle on social media, they either want to help you or they don't know how to help you, but you have to tell them.
How do you build your social media presence?
Content engagement is key. What you've done with your campaign, we were just talking about before we started, is incredible. Giving back, and also sharing articles. I do 3 posts a day, 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. And I read in the mornings, and I read articles that are very informative for the community, especially when you talk about just what we had recently with our Stanley Cup. The Lightning were on Jimmy Fallon. I took the YouTube clip and I put it on my social media because, maybe you weren't up late watching Jimmy Fallon and watching Steven Stamkos get interviewed, which was amazing. So share that, but it creates engagement. Then you got more following, and then people share that, and then people share that, and then you're back to the following.
So when you have very set times, like you're structured on that. And I think oftentimes for a lot of people that does work because I do well on a schedule.
Right.
Like I like to be on a schedule as well. So you would recommend that as well.
Yeah. And I would use, people are busy, right? So, and your every day is changing. So I would use it if there's a lot of social media tools. There's one called Buffer, which is free. And there's another one called Hootsuite, which is, I think it's like $15 a month, but they're scheduling tools. So if you know the content, you can just schedule it and you can just advance for 30 days. You don't have to do anything. You just push it out.
It's, it's having the patience to sit there and do it all in one day, as you said.
Of course.
If you want to, or 15 days in advance, because it's interesting that you mentioned that, because yesterday I came in at 7:45, worked through 8 to put together my podcast schedule. And not only just put together like the guest, but who's going to write it, who's going to produce it, who's going to, who's doing the social media. But I tell you, today I'm feeling such a sense of relief because it's done.
And it's for the next 30 days, right?
Yes, it's actually for the month of November.
Perfect.
And yes, for October and November.
Yeah.
So it is, and I would advise that. It just takes, so I'm with you on that. It takes some patience, but if you do it, then you also feel, again, just that great sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned, which is you realized early on that your value could be taking people to events. Now, did that kind of go off like a light bulb, for lack of a better example? I mean, how did it come to you?
I needed to keep the customers. Mm-hmm. And the customers were saying, hey, we wanted to meet more people. On email, sometimes people don't respond because people are busy. And then I thought about, well, they're paying for a networking event anyway. I'm paying for the same networking event. When we're at the event, I'm not really meeting new people. I'm just connecting others. And that and again, like you said, some people are extroverted. You and I are extroverted people.
Yes, we're very extroverted.
Some people are introverted. Mm-hmm. And so when you're at an event, there's a setting, right? People have this intimidation factor, So I thought about it. I was like, well, if I just walk them around, kind of give them that comfort, they'll open up. And once you make that connection, there's folks that just want that one spark. And so my thought process was on, the biggest challenge is are people really going to need it? And that's what you have to test. So when you talk to other people, they said no one else is doing that. So you're making me feel comfortable. So I'll definitely I'll hire you. And so that's when I knew that I had something. And then of course it's morphed into what it is now, where there's so many events and we've got to choose and plug and play. And so now it's more about, we advise on which events do they attend and why, right? Because then now it's just like, you might have 3 in one night.
Yeah.
And so how do you choose?
That's brilliant.
Well, we go, okay, this is why you need to go to this one because Sarina's going to be at that one. And he wants you to meet Sarina, so you go to that one. And it sounds so simple, right? Like, but the thing about it is, just like these business owners are very busy and they're very focused internally on their business. We're helping the external operations. And so I think what's going on right now with this pandemic, it's actually in some ways made it a lot easier because you can't just show up anymore to an event. You have to RSVP because of capacity and CDC guidelines. So these luncheons and these dinners that have happened so far that are socially distanced, it's actually great because you know the limit. So you actually know there's only going to be 60 people. So it's not going to be 500 people. You don't have to worry about getting lost. You're one of 60.
That's a really good point. So when you first started, was it just you?
Yeah, just me by myself. I was at the Center Club just thinking ideas and talking to people.
So now you actually have a staff as well.
I do, yeah.
So would you tell people, if you have a dream of owning your own business, it can happen?
Absolutely. I think it's like anything else: persistence, determination, and hard work. Which you've obviously you're a master at that. And I think the logistics of it is finding what you're passionate about. Then it's not really work. And for me, I like connecting people, so that was work. But now it's fun. And then when the best is just like you, when you get your viewers write you these long letters of how much you've inspired them and changed their mindset. When we've got some great stories of people connecting and they've made more money. We had 2 different clients that met. They're now in probably getting engaged. So it's like we're literally changing lives of people. But you just have to keep at it. You just cannot give up. And I think that's the biggest thing with a business is the first couple of years are really difficult because you don't make a lot of money generally. And you have all these things that are negative against you. You got to turn that into the positive.
This conversation has been so fascinating that I forgot to take a break. But so we've actually gone way beyond the break time. But we're going to take a break, and we are going to come back because you mentioned something that I want to touch on before we wrap up the podcast. So we'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by Zips Dry Cleaners.
I'm Sarina Fazan. I don't know about you, but there are not enough hours in the day. Well, thanks to Zips, one less task on my to-do list. For only $3.49 per garment, they actually pick up my dry cleaning and drop it off. I get it the very next day. Just give them a call. Okay, everybody, welcome back to On the Record. I'm here with Aakash Patel, CEO and founder of Elevate. I was supposed to take a commercial break 10 minutes ago, but I was so fascinated with this conversation on networking that I forgot to take the break. But anyway, we're back. And you mentioned something about connecting people and getting people engaged. And, people have gotten engaged through your connections. So I did want to talk a little bit. I'm going to have you back on my Love in America and Dating in America podcast. But before we wrap up our podcast, tell us a little bit about you and about where you came from. You were a first generation, aren't you?
Yep. My dad was born in Africa and Uganda, and my mom was born in India. And they met in pharmacy college in Massachusetts. They're both pharmacists.
Well, they're both pharmacists.
Retired now.
So, and you also talked about having, perseverance, determination, and hard work. Did you learn that from your mom and dad? I know I invited you to an event for my producer debut for Joe Exotic Tigers Lives in Tampa. No, but you know what? What moved me so much? You said, of course, I would love to be there, but I typically have dinner with my dad.
Every Sunday I try to have dinner because, especially during the pandemic, you realize sometimes you can't see each other. So Sundays I try to have dinner with my dad who lives locally. My mom lives in Melbourne, Florida. And, they did teach me hard work because they had their own pharmacies at a young age. First of all, my dad was 24, my mom was 26 when I was born, and they had pharmacies by the time they were 30, their own. And when you own a pharmacy, you have to work the hours of the pharmacy, which is not normally conducive to a kid's schedule. So their shifts were always different, and they balanced the work life. It was hard because we were we didn't have cell phones back then when they were doing it. So I can't imagine doing what we do now without the technology we have in front of us. And it's amazing they got through it.
Well, as we wrap up, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs out there? You've given us a lot of great advice, but if you had to choose, maybe it's not even fair to say just one. Your top 3 things, what would you say? Yeah,
number 1, always, always, always be prepared to network. Meaning you never know who you're going to meet. Obviously, the plane story, it comes from that. Number 2, follow up with a plan. Just think strategically when you follow up with somebody. If they mention they like a certain type of flowers, say that, hey, I saw some flowers, and just whatever it is. And the last thing is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you're out there looking for business, which most of us, in the business world are, you've got to put it out there, because these people that tip around the conversations and they kind of, we know what you're here for. We want you to ask. And I think that's the most important thing, because everyone's time is valuable and you don't want to waste people's time if they have no interest or no budget, whatever it is. And so I think that is where I've been learning, as we always evolve, is that we just need to ask the right questions, and then if we find the right answers, we'll work together. If not, it's okay.
Well, Aakash Patel, what a pleasure to have you on
Thank you so
this
much.
podcast, On the Record. I'd love to invite you back. I think you'll have to come back for a Love in America or a Dating in America. Are you single?
I'm single.
Oh, he's single, ladies. He's single. Definitely, you're coming back. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aakash. And thank you, everyone, for watching. You can follow me on all my social media platforms. And, of course, you can subscribe to On the Record. Thanks again, and thanks for all your support.